trial should have never been brought, but if we had a jury, it would have been fair, at least, even if it was a somewhat negative jury, because no negative jury would vote against me. But this judge will, because this judge is a very partisan judge, with a person who's very partisan sitting alongside of him, perhaps even much more partisan than he is. So we are doing very well. The facts are speaking very loud. He's a totally discredited witness, and you haven't seen anything yet. This goes on for a long time, but he's a totally discredited witness.
Somebody call the ambulance because Donald Trump is having a hissy fit once again. He stormed out of a New York courthouse after day 2 of testimony from his former fixer, Michael Cohen. That statement he just made there that you saw cost him because a judge slapped him with a $10,000 fine for violating the gag order again. Not even the first time. He's doing it again. Now, here's some details from that fine that he received from the New York Times. The judge, Arthur F. Engoron, who was presiding over Mr. Trump's civil fraud trial, issued the punishment after determining that Mr. Trump had violated an order against discussing court staff when he spoke to reporters earlier in the day. So when Trump said the person next to the judge is even more partisan, the judge said Trump is not allowed to criticize his staff. Trump pretended he wasn't talking about the clerk, but was talking about Michael Cohen, which makes no sense. And the judge rightfully pointed that out, considering that Michael Cohen worked for Donald Trump for a long time, went to jail for something that he did in service of Donald Trump. Partisan? Make it make sense. So that's when the judge forced Trump to up to the stand to explain himself. From the New York Times. From the stand, Mr. Trump, wearing a Navy suit and curtailing his usual monologue, insisted that his spontaneous comments in the courthouse hallway had been about his former lawyer, Michael D. Cohen, a witness. They were not, he said, about the judge's law clerk, Allison Greenfield, whom he had previously attacked on social media. But Mr. Trump testified that he thought Ms. Greenfield was, quote, maybe unfair, and I think she's very biased against us. He left the stand after about 3 minutes, and Justice Engoron made his pronouncement almost immediately afterward. I find that the witness is not credible, he said, and levied the fine as Mr. Trump stared blankly ahead. I am very protective of my staff, Justice Engoron said, adding, I don't want anybody killed, which is rightfully a thing to be afraid of when you have potentially the most high profile, defendant sitting in front of you in your courtroom that has unfettered access to the media and a captive audience listening to every word he says, who's levied that audience to already commit acts of violence. So the fear that someone in his staff might get killed is a very real fear, a fear that I'm sure he also holds for himself and the members of his family. This finally, I'll read from that same article. Justice Engoron had already fined Mr. Trump $5,000 last week for comments he made about Ms. Greenfield. That first violation was something of a technicality, though the comments were deleted from social media. They had also been posted to Mr. Trump's website and were not taken down for weeks. Now, if or really when Trump violates the gag order again, he will most likely get a higher fine. Now, the judge has threatened to Trump that throwing him in jail is possible, but definitely unlikely. He did say that the $10,000 fine was on the liberal side. But Donald Trump will probably do what he's already been doing and use the donations from his supporters to pay for that fine, as he has been using them to pay for his attorney's fees and all of his other legal expenses. Sharon, I think it's really interesting that Donald Trump can't stop attacking this judge because he asked for a bench trial, right? Donald Trump could have a jury. These decisions could be getting made by a jury. Instead, he requested the judge to make these decisions. In this case, his attorneys put in that request, and now he's attacking the sole trier of fact in his case. It doesn't make sense, but I don't expect Donald Trump's actions to make a lot of sense.
No, he's not the brightest, but I do think that I understand his motivation here because he can't do a jury trial. Who will you bully? I mean, there's plenty to pick from, but if you want to just focus on one person, the trial may not last long enough for him to get to everybody. So this way, he has one person to bully, one person to focus on, one person that he thinks these same tricks. He has zero control, zero discipline. And I don't even know why the $10,000 kind of irked me. It's a nice figure unless you've been ripping off the public for, how many years now? And small business owners, private contractors, and a lot of other people too. I don't know why you'd even put him on the stand though. Couldn't you just play his prior statements? Like the guy who stood in Helsinki and said, I don't know why it would beat Russia. And then 24 hours later, when his aide scribbled something down, said, read this. He said, no, I made myself clear. What I said was, I don't know why it wouldn't beat Russia. This is silly. You go to your kid, there's crumbs all over her mouth. The cookie jar is empty. Okay, the lid's off. And she tells you this ridiculous lie. Okay, while she's laughing. Okay, that's what we're getting here. This is an exercise in dippy. I don't know another word for it. It's come to the point where it's just dippy. It's dippy. I don't even want to watch, but I will watch. I actually will watch.
And it's funny because you're right. It also irked me that low figure. And as I mentioned, Engoron himself said it was on the liberal side of things, because you have sitting in front of you a man who has bragged that he's the richest person in the world. We know it's not true, but he brags about it. You have sitting in front of you the least credible person potentially ever. When he said, I find the witness not credible, all I could think was, yeah, no, duh. Of course, the witness is not credible. He's Donald Trump. Nothing he says should be taken seriously.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.